What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Big Phil from Big Phil Speaks, the people's champ to this here YouTube blogging thing. Here to bring you another spectacular topic that affects our community in one way or another. What is it? Snitching. Snitching. That's right, you heard it. Snitching. The myths, misconceptions, and the historical bearing in our communities. Snitching has been a long debated topic in and around the black communities, brown communities, period. Most recently, with the situation with the Tekashi 6ix9ine case, with Albert Martinez being released after telling on Wayne Perry and a few other people to garner his early release, and various other what we call urban or hood legend or hood hero figures. But it also affects public relations, the government, police, and how they operate. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a few minutes to dig in just a little bit, and get a greater understanding of where it all came from, who's been exempt, who was never exempt, and who has a greater weight to hold the code of no snitching. So here we go. What a lot of people don't realize, that the term snitching might not have been around since slavery, but the premise behind no snitching goes way back to slavery. In slavery days, slaves did a lot of things to, one, teach themselves, educate themselves, feed themselves, plan their escapes, etc., outside of masters' eyesight, earsight, and knowledge. And then you had those that were called overseers that did the master's bidding, that watched over the slaves. And certain slaves also were given certain jobs and were brainwashed to run and tell that, so to speak, to the masters. So our people had to maneuver in such a way that was covert, under the table. When it came to food, they had to sneak food out the house so that they can have something better than just the scraps and things that were portioned out to them, or parts of the animals that were just left to them for their consumption. So what we did as a people, we came about with code signals and ways to do things to get around being noticed or being found out. When it came to reading, because reading back in those days, in most cases, was a way to get you killed or severely beat. Escape, of course. Killed, beat, and some other things. So we as blacks, as a community, in each plantation, in each area, acted as a community, and for the most part in concert, to try to better the situation and get out from under the situation. Now, to those that were brainwashed so bad and in positions, and we're not just talking about the difference between a house Negro and a field Negro, because all house Negroes weren't bad people or snitches, so to speak. They were just placed there. One, because of skin tone, relation to the master, or the master wanted them close for sexual reasons or other reasons, master or his wife, or so forth, so on, or how long they've been on the plantation and felt like they were safe to be around. So that's a misconception there, that the house Negro was always the tattletale and da 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 da. The field Negro was always at the brunt end of everything. The field Negro just happened to do more of the harder work because they were out in the fields all day. With that being said, those that have been brainwashed in such a way that they would run and tell that either to the overseers or to the master for favors, for little extras, were considered snitches, tattletales, various other terms back in those days. Because snitching, I don't believe was out as a term back then. But the act of snitching was very much alive then, because you had those individuals that they wouldn't care about the lives of family members, so-called friends, other people in the communities, on the plantations, and would run and go tell that to master if there was any plans for escape, if there were any, covert ops to get extra food, whether it been somebody's reading, somebody's being uppity, or somebody's, trying to educate other young blacks to better themselves. So snitching itself as an action goes back to slavery. And with that being said, from slavery into, let's say, the 60s, maybe 70s, it became a thing in our community. You don't snitch, you don't tattletale. You don't snitch, you don't tattletale. The difference is, from slavery to the 60s and 70s, 1960s, 1970s, it went from master to the police and the powers that be. The term snitching came about, I want to say 30s, 40s, somewhere off in there. Our communities weren't the first ones to use it. The mob, the mafia, various other organizations, various other communities use that term, along with stool pigeon, rat, various other terms to label people that didn't mind their business, who told on people, who, got people locked up, got people killed, different things. Now, before I touch on that, this is what you need to understand. From the time of slavery until like the 60s or 70s, everybody operated under the no snitching mindset. You had parents that said, boy, you better not go tell so-and-so that. From slavery days, this is for us. You better not tell massa. You better not say a word. Coming forward towards the 60s and 70s before that, as the mob made their influence in America. And we're not just talking about the Italian mafia, but we're talking about the Irish mob, the Polish mobs, the various other organizations, underworld organizations that took root. The term snitching grew its roots. But in our communities, with everything that has been going on from slavery to the Klan and the Jim Crow era and police oppression in the desegregation era, along with just in inner cities, period, the amount of brutality that was going on and corruption that was going on, you were taught, you don't say anything to the police. You don't tattletale, and you don't snitch. Now, these are from a citizen's point of view, a citizen standpoint. You've heard it here lately where they say, well, that's a citizen. They're not in the game. They don't operate under the no snitching rule, clause, code. Well, if you look at it historically, then indeed, yes, the community or the citizens were held under that same standard. And in those days, even if you were a citizen, if you were a citizen and you did snitch, you could end up under the same, having the same issues as somebody that was in the streets, as far as dead, beat up, et cetera, especially, you know, from like the 40s to the 70s or what have you. Now, with that being said, from the mob era came about the code, street codes in the black neighborhood, street codes that got even more prevalent in the 70s, 80s, into the 90s. When the drug businesses boomed even further, from the heroin, the dope, to the coke business, to the crack business, which is an extension of the coke business. It just got a little bit more dangerous. No snitching became a mantra in the streets. My business is my business. My business ain't your business. If you make my business your business, then your life becomes my business. That's basically the mentality of folks in the streets in those days. And out of that became a situation where folks were ostracized, shunned, beat up, shot, killed, stabbed, killed, if they were thought to have been aiding and abetting the police in any cases or any investigations. Then it became a thing where paperwork had to be involved. This comes from a West Coast tradition, far as my knowledge. Seen it firsthand in the 80s. Whereas if you're going to call somebody a snitch, you better have something in black and white that points out why they how they snitched, how you know they snitched. And when we say paperwork, we're talking about court documents. Court documents that spell out either the person's name directly, has their signature, or in some way makes it crystal clear that that person was the person. Like it maybe two people knew about the whole situation and you the other person, and that person is labeled as a CI, confidential informant number one, or confidential witness number one, et cetera, then it ain't too hard to figure out who that snitch is or who that person is that's talking to the police when there was only a couple people involved. But if you have an organization or crew or, you know, a few people involved, it's kind of harder to pinpoint who said what, who could have said what, depending on what the knowledge is that's being relayed to the police, transmitted to the police or what have you. Now, going from the 60s to the 70s into the 80s, it then becomes a thing of the separation of citizen and street individual, thug, gangster, gangbanger, dope dealer, drug dealer, whatever you want to call it. There was a divide then. That's where the divide became, you know, started widening. However, even through the crack era, people were disciplined, houses shot up, houses burnt down, burnt out of their houses, and sometimes killed for running and talking to the police. So it goes to show you that the no snitching mantra or code still applied to both citizens as well as street individuals. It hadn't started changing totally until I would say in the 2000s, maybe even 2010-ish, where this thing of, oh, they're citizens, they don't fall under the same code as we do, which is understandable because if you have people that are going about their life working 9 to 5s, raising their families, not involved in no street activities, this and that, they can't be held to the same standard as somebody that subscribes to the code of the street, meaning they out here slanging, banging, you know, doing things in the street or what have you. And quite frankly, if you're playing in the street if you're grown enough to play in the street and be a big boy in the street, then you need to be a big man when shit comes down and you have to take the heat. That's, in a nutshell, part of the code. You make your bed, you lay in it. You make your bed as a man, you lay in it as a man. Period. However, the one caveat to the no snitching code still not applying to everybody, or applying to everybody, is talking to the police in general. Still frowned upon by our older generation when looking at the youngsters and looking at even people their age, just openly talking to the police. It still raises eyebrows. Now, this is a topic that I could go into for like on and on and on and on, but let me give you the irony of what's going on now. Now in modern days, like I said, there's a separation between those who are supposed to be held bound by the code and those who are exempt. Now, you have the powers that be, the establishments that went on a campaign from the 90s to now on an anti-stop snitching campaign. And their premise was, you should be turning in these people in your neighborhood. You should be giving us the information we need to prosecute those that are doing wrong. You need to be bettering your neighborhood by getting rid of these miscreants and these hooligans and these thugs and these, the scourge of the neighborhoods. Now, here's the gotcha, though. These same people running these campaigns, i.e. Local government, federal government, local government, down to local police departments, all maintain a no snitching policy of their own. Down to the local police department, it's called the thin blue line, where officers are not to cross that line on their police brothers. No matter what they do, how egregious, how horrific to somebody else, the fellow police officer is not supposed to say anything. Another form of stop snitching or no snitching. So the irony of it is this: they want us to close cases for them, but they don't even want to close cases on themselves and where there's wrongdoing. Now, how can you have how can you have an organization that's corrupt in and of itself? Not all officers, not everybody in the government, local or federal, are corrupt. However, if you have a few that are, and you know it, and you do nothing, you're just as bad as they are. And what's worse, you've been tasked with office, you've been tasked with a job, and you've been tasked with the responsibility to protect and serve our communities. Talking to the police that might see this. You have been tasked to protect and serve our communities. But if you're not willing to be a man or a woman in your own environment and stand up to the corruption, brutality, and other things that goes on in the police department, then you're not in the right frame of mind. You're not in the right moral fortitude to stand in our communities, stand over our communities, govern, patrol, police, protect, and serve our communities. Period, point blank. Period, point blank. Now, with the hypocrisy of the police not snitching on themselves and the streets saying, there will be no snitching, we have this new phenomenon that's relatively, it's gone on throughout the years minutely, but here in these last few years, it's starting to blossom And I'm about to be 47. I've seen a little of this, I've seen a little of that. And for me, it's kind of got my eyebrows like, huh? You have it where known informants are allowed to come and go as they please. In some cases, go back to the same neighborhoods that they used to be in and act as if they didn't destroy other people's lives. Now, some people would say there's no honor among thieves. All is fair, love, and war. That's some people's opinion. I'm of the old school mindset that if you did, if that was yours, that was your charge to take, you take it. You lay on it. You played the game. And all that comes with the game. But you have a new generation that, one, has been operating without true leadership or true mentoring, whether it be on the upside of the table or under the table. And what that does is open the door for skewed interpretations. What it also opens the door for a lack of caring about tradition, morals, codes, ethics. And if you look around in most inner cities today, you see a lot of that. Not just the code, but even morals and ethics. Like, people didn't used to commit certain crimes towards the elderly like that. That was a rare thing, and it was highly shunned in neighborhoods. Crimes against kids have always been shunned. But now in this day and this age, it's a little bit more tolerable. You have people that make excuses for why they are okay with the person that's considered a rat or a snitch to be loose in their neighborhood or walking around, or while they're dealing with them. I'm going to give a case in point. I throw parties and events and whatnot, and there was one establishment owner who, we knew some of the same people, and we were talking about Wayne Perry and some other things that we had some common, denominators with or whatever. And he was telling me that his business partner was a rat and an informant. And I'm looking at him like, word? And he's my age, so I'm like, how the hell you cool with that? He went on to say to me that the rat, the snitching thing, it's all misconstrued and it's a one big ass myth. And I'm looking at him like, this nigga here. He had some valid points though. And at first I thought maybe it was because dude had a bag and he was utilizing this bag for their business venture. And that still might have partly been so or whatever. However, he used the example of the mob and the mafia and various other entities throughout time. With the mafia, he said, they were one of the biggest pushers or the biggest organized institution that was against snitching. However, you would have it where they would go to police officers and inform on other crews in situations to get them off the street. That's snitching, right? I ain't talking about going and testifying in court. I'm talking about giving them information on where the dope spot was, where the cracks, where the coke spot was, where the gambling spot was, where the number spot was, who was bringing in guns, and even further back, who was bringing in the liquor. That's snitching, right? So he had some points there, like it's all, he basically was trying to say it was all one big joke. However, where we differed in our conversation was this. If the people that he snitched on sent some people for him and you around him, you gonna go to bat for him? He said, oh, hell nah, because that ain't that. But then you could be the one catching a bullet right beside him because you were hanging with him. He said, well, I can protect myself, but that ain't the point nor the issue. You know how it's supposed to go out here. This is what I said to him. This is how it's supposed to go. But as truth would have it, nothing ever happened to dude. And there's a lot of people that knew that he was an informant. Sound familiar, don't it? Sounds like your boy Alpo, who told on Wayne Perry from D.C., some other people, killed one of his good people, one of his main buddies in New York, Rich Porter, served some time, snitched, got out early, and he's maneuvering around. He's maybe not as open and freely as he used to, but he's still showing his face and making his presence known online, offline, in the street. And nobody's done nothing. Then you have this little rapper wannabe Blood gang member who was calling some shots, making some shit happen. There's been a lot misconstrued with that, talking about he was a victim and that, they were using him. Yeah, and they probably were using him, but at the same time, he called in some hits. He made some shit happen. So he was far from a victim. You have it where he now has snitched, and the topic on people's minds is about a so-called $10 million deal that is awaiting him, which I think is a myth within itself. But who knows until he touched down. Might be touching down next month. This is November 2019. He might be touching down in December or January. You have a lot of folks of the mindset that I'll support his music, I'll buy his music. These are street dudes too, or so-called street dudes. For me, that's crazy, but that's my opinion. The problem is for those that indulge in the street activities, in the street life. The question is this: is there really any code left? Because now you have it with youngins that are out here doing that are so-called hustlers and drug dealers are using, popping pills like it's no tomorrow, snorting dope, snorting coke, using crack, meth, and different other things, and they think that shit is cool, as it is displayed and relayed out in rap music. Like, that's the shit. In my era, you was shunned if you was one of the hustlers that turned into a user. But I think that mentality change has also ushered in the allowance, the overlooking, or the tolerance, or the being okay with certain things, i.e. Snitches or rats moving around freely, different types of crimes that wouldn't happen before happening now, just different things. And the problem with that is this: even though all of it is wrong when it comes to street life, there used to be order to some things. You get out the way for the old ladies. You help them with their bags. You help them across the street. That's why where I used to hustle at, police wasn't hardly called. It wasn't until some of the younger dudes started playing with pistols in the alley that our neighborhood got hot. Where we lived on Kennedy Street, we had the quietest area of Kennedy Street. However, one of the most profitable areas of Kennedy Street that everybody from all up and down from 1st, 5th, 7th, and 9th wanted to come hustle up our way, or those from all the way down 14th Street, 1-4 Zone, 35, even some Park Road dudes wanted to come hustle up our way because we was moving units, but quietly. albeit while a police bar was up the street. They didn't care because we kept it low. And we respected the neighborhood. And the neighbors, we respected the neighbors. And they even though they didn't like what we were doing, at least we wasn't, you know what I'm saying, like a lot of the other areas. That's the way they looked at it. Nowadays, you got youngins that don't care about the elderly, don't care about their neighborhood, but want to make money in their neighborhood. Not realize that money and violence don't go together anyway. If you're going to put the murder game down or the violence game down, your time of making money is coming to an end, because then that's when they coming for you. And when they come for you, because you've been playing the game, the code says that you're supposed to eat that. Shut your mouth, take the weight of your crime and deal with it. The problem for a lot of people is, one, the amount of time they're giving out for just drug offenses onto the violent crimes, and then the factoring in of the people that are out here in these streets now doing these type of involved with these activities. These people, a lot of these youngins wouldn't have been allowed to be out on the corner, on the block, doing nothing some years ago. So you have a different caliber of individual on these blocks with a demented mind state that's clouded by drugs, pills, everybody, done drunk a beer, alcohol, so I'm not going to use that, but the heavy drugs, the psychotic drugs that a lot of these youngins are using, the lean, it changes your whole mindset, and it allows certain things to go on and be okay. Then you also have it whereas the older generation who were involved, they were locked up, either got locked up for all of it or are starting to come home after 20, 30, 40-year bids, whatever. And these youngins are looking at them like, who are you? One, because they haven't been schooled on who's who. Two, they looking at it like you outdated, you're a dinosaur. When they not realizing these OGs have knowledge that can keep their ass out of jail. Yeah, technology has changed, but the general workings, the basics, the foundation of it all is the same. So these youngins ain't respecting old leadership. Old leadership ain't respecting new leadership, and it's people are being left to them. People are being left out here to themselves and to their own vices, which is chaos. And what all this is done, because especially in the crack era, I'm gonna do a whole series on the crack era. What the crack era did, it broke down the black community, especially to the point where the citizens, they were scared to see, hear anything because of the no snitching code. The violence of it all, then the displacement of families, because you had mothers and fathers on crack, and then they were making babies born with crack addiction. Some obvious in their actions and some not so obvious that later on down the line has come out in the form of various other illnesses and mental situations. Thus, you have the climate you have today. Thus, you have the climate you have today. And in the midst of this whole climate, you got police treating us like trash. Treating us like trash out here in the streets. Not even in the street. Like, you ain't even got to be in a drug area. You don't have to be on a drug corner. You don't have to be dressed like no thug. And they still treat you like trash, whether you're in your car, whether you're in your front yard, in your home. Y'all see the videos. And in case after case after case, they keep getting off and keep getting away with it. Why? Because of that thin blue line where you got other officers that have witnessed things for themselves would not come forward. One, fear of retribution. Retribution meaning getting reassigned to some bullshit detail or desk job, demoted, fired, some kind of harm from their fellow police officers, being left without help in dangerous situations. But is that an excuse? No, it's not, because this is the job they chose. It's like joining the army. You join the army, you hope you don't have to go to war, go overseas or whatever. But guess what? If you're in the army or in Marines or any of the armed forces and it's wartime, your ass got to go. So guess what? As police officers, they signed up to protect and serve the community, not protect and serve their fellow officers, even though you're supposed to have your brother's back. But if your brother ain't about shit on your brother, some shit, the same way y'all beating up on citizens, y'all need to do something to your fellow police officers. Because to bring it full circle, how dare you tell us as a community that you need to snitch, you need to tell on the person that's doing wrong in your community, but yet you turning a blind eye, or actually wide open eye, turning away from what you know to be foul and messed up in the police departments, in the governmental agencies and offices. These are things that need to be fixed. Now, I know this video doesn't, it's about 36 minutes in right now, so I'm not going to go too much further, but we're going to do a live on this to get some more dialogue. And I want y'all to weigh in, tap in the comments below. But this ain't going to get to the end all be all when it comes to snitching, who's right, who's wrong. At the end of the day, I guess your household has to make the determination of what you feel is right and what you feel is wrong. What you subscribe to in life, whether it be the street life, a straight-laced life, or combination, slip slide, from one side to the other, whatever it may be, you have to, at the end of the day, understand that you're accountable for your actions and the things you do. So if you choose to be involved and then you choose to flip on those other people that were involved with you, you have to deal with the repercussions of that, whether it be a little repercussions or a lot of repercussions or no repercussions. Just as well as being in the street and dealing with the time that come with your crime. It is what it is. With that being said, this is your boy Big Phil from Big Phil Speaks, the people's champ when it comes to this here internet thing. Holla at your boy. Tap in, weigh in. If you have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Boop up. Hit that subscribe button. Boop up. Then hit that notification bell so you can be on point to when I drop new videos. Because we're going to have interesting topics. I'm not sure if this might be interesting to you or might not, this one topic. But I guarantee you something that I'm going to post will interest you. So hit that notification bell. Bing! I said hit that notification bell. Bing! Also, share this with people. Share this on your Facebook, your Instagram, Twitters, and things of that nature. Let's get some dialogue going. Tap in, weigh in. Let your voice be heard. For or against snitching. What's your stance on it? Anything that I talked about, whether you agree, disagree, or anything. If you like the video, thumb that thing up. It's free. It don't cost you nothing. If you dislike it, thumb it down. It's all good. Either way, we all have opinions. We all have a stance in the way we feel about things. But at the end of the day, if you don't weigh in at all, if you don't say nothing, then your voice don't mean shiggity. You hear me? So tap in, weigh in. Let your voice be heard. This is your boy, Big Phil. And once again, I'm not anti-you. I'm pro-me with an emphasis on building we. So let that marinate in your melon till the next time we can chop it up and have a tay-to-tay. But until that day, I holla.